got some comments from NotaroBot. I like the macro perspective here, the strategic look at how racism adapts and persists. Very interesting. And then he follows up with, I think it's a great point to bring up because a lot of the white community that I've seen still thinks racism is expressed in the old ways, KKK, burning crosses, etc. If they were presented on an evolution and adaptation of racism from 1700s to present, or even 1960s to present, that would open some eyes for sure. We keep seeing the suffering markers, but the expression has changed. What do you think about education as a tool? Obviously, we know what the United States government thinks about it, but what do you personally think about educating people about that adaptability element of racism over time?
I think it's absolutely important. I, I don't think education is, a cure-all. I don't think it necessarily like restructures a society. I don't think it necessarily on its own redistributes power. But I think that when people can see, when they can see it, I know even with my own kids who had teachers who are willing to like present history as it actually is, it's eye-opening to them, especially to be, and what's great is a lot of kids, or at least my kids, already kind of want to like push back against things just naturally, question things, be opposed to, you know what I mean, whatever's popular, kind of want to be against it a little bit. So they're actually ready and willing to listen to like counter narratives and different stories than just the standard stock. And I think
I know a lot of people would hear that and be like, "Oh no, they're being indoctrinated."
oh yeah,
Like, what do you say to those people?
everybody is being indoctrinated. Right, so we're
That's
trying
a
to get
really good answer.
indoctrinate with truth rather than mythology. um, so I think that's definitely important. And then yes, learning how racism adapts, like one way to get this puppet master view of systemic racism out of your mind is to actually follow that out, how it's changed, right, how the language has changed, right. So I mean, even if you just were to look at the period before, the 1964 Civil Rights Act, like how does a business function before, and how does that very same business function after, and what are the results, right. Does the um, racial makeup of their employees change? Are the advancements changing? What changed? And then when you see that they didn't change, then you got to look into those new mechanisms that are facially colorblind and see what they're really performing and what are they intended to perform. And then you can start to see that it's not a puppet master, but it really is just the preservation of those institutions and systems by other means, right? Adapting and changing over time. And kind of when you follow that out, you no longer think that it's got to be a grand conspiracy theory. It's all over in little places and little tiny things and little thoughts and little ideas and little structures and you know and then obviously, I mean, you're in mathematics, it's in every field is structured around race. I mean, it really is. Like,
Yeah.
you can't even, I could never have comprehended that when I was younger until people had forced me to see, like, okay, why are these the subjects talked about within this tradition and not these other subjects? And why, like, oh, wow, it's in like those disciplines should have nothing to do with race, but of course they do. So if you can follow out that historical progression, that development, then you can see systemic racism, right, happening before your eyes without having to think of some group of bad people who are controlling other people to make it happen, or something of that sort, right? Especially in our country, it should be really easy because when you have specific practices, right, that are quote unquote not racist, that are directly linked to long periods of overt racism, and those practices produce similar, if not the same results, then it's an easy one. You know,
Yeah,
It should be.
this stuff isn't hard, but it's hard for people to accept.
Yeah.
We can shell out mountains of evidence, and people will find ways to transform it, to discount it, to counter it with misinformation, as we've talked about today. So it's going to
Right.
take a long time and a lot of effort by a lot of people working in concert in order to bring our culture to one that's more accepting of these ideas related to anti-racism, and getting people curious about learning more about it. The next generation is going to be very key in that, and
Oh
it's
yeah.
great to hear that your kids are already engaged in kind of learning and growing with that idea, with those ideas built
Hmm.
in to their education. So that's great.
Oh yeah. I'm looking forward to it. I'm not one of those who are pessimistic about the next generation. I'm
Yeah.
excited to see.
Yeah, I'm curious to see too.
Yeah.
I am worried for them. Not because of them, but because of the older generations. We're still we we apparently didn't learn how to let go.
Yeah.
I think especially the one above me is, whoo boy, they do not want to relinquish power. We have not mastered in this country the transfer of power in any way, shape, or form, all the way to the presidency, obviously.
All right. Yeah.